Joining us to talk more about that is former senior Reagan advisor and Great American PAC chairman, Ed Rollins. Ed, good to see you.
Good morning. How are you?
This is an important decision. Your take on the next Supreme Court nominee.
Well, first of all, this highlights the extraordinary number of great conservative judges that this president has appointed. And this list of 4, or to take the whole list of 25, every one of them is an extraordinary person. I would like to see Amy Barrett get it, and I said on your show yesterday. I think a conservative woman, Sandra Day O'Connor, was the first any woman judge. She wasn't quite as conservative in the end, but was a good judge. I think a conservative woman at this point in time, there's 3 liberal Democrats on the other side, I think would be very, very important for this president.
I feel like the detractors of this president are not going to be happy with anybody because they're outraged that he actually is going to be the most consequential president that we've seen in decades, given the number of Supreme Court seats he's going to nominate.
Well, we see all the damage that the Obama judges did to us initially. I mean, any federal judge can stop any kind of action, and they have. The important thing about the court is the writings, in addition to the decisions themselves. Each and every one of these are extraordinary, talented people who have been not just judges, but they have obviously been mentored by some of the most significant legal minds in the country of recent era, and I think that's very, very important. The untold story of Clarence Thomas, everybody talks about him never speaking up. Clarence Thomas is probably the best writer of anybody on the court today. It's time, I think, for us to recognize the great talent that the president has put on the bench.
Yep. You know, I think that it's really fascinating right now because the left is framing this so much around women's issues, around this being a battle for women. So I think you're right about if you put a woman on the court, I think that neutralizes it. But in addition, this is also going to be really interesting to see if they don't start framing this as a battle over immigration as well.
Well, I think they'll battle over everything. I think the reality here is that this is, the days of 97 and old. I mean, if you'd say that Judge Scalia was going to be past 97 to zip today, it'd be the same kind of battle. My sense today is that we need to kind of get a little away from these intense battles over the court. I mean, the consequences are significant, but you do so much damage. As Judge Gorsuch said, he never understood, even though his mother had been Ann Burford, the EPA administrator, had been forced that he didn't realize the intensity of the battle. And I think to a certain extent, every time we fight these institutions, we do damage to our government long term. And we should be praising the quality of the people that are up there as opposed to knocking them around for their religion or any of the rest of it.
Ed, is the choice ultimately going to be made based upon which of those 4 candidates, assuming it's those 4, is most confirmable at the end of the day? Because with a very narrow margin in the Senate and potentially Senator McCain not voting at all, it may require some Democrats to vote. So do you think that's going to...
And he does think he's going to get Democrats.
I think you got to choose the battles carefully, but equally as important, you got to make a statement. And my sense today is this president is at a point where he needs to go fight and fight tenaciously for whoever his appointment is. Every single one of these people are very, very qualified. And why would you let Democrats basically get off the hook? I would take my case to them across the country if they do.
Do you think earlier on the show we were talking about possibly Hardiman taking over, given that he was a successor or in the running to be a successor after Scalia? He's got gun rights supporters. President Trump had an extra phone call with him after his interview on Tuesday. Do you think that those are signs?
You know, I think he's an extraordinary talent and came very close last time, and I think a lot of people assumed he would be first in line if this occurred again. So I'm glad he's back on the list. I made my points for Judge Barrett, but I think the reality is any one of these 4 are extraordinary people and will do a great job. But let's not kid ourselves. This is the 5th vote, so the Democrats are going to fight to the bitter end. If any of these big decisions are going to be overruled or put forward on a 5-4, all 5 of these are probably going to vote for it. So it's not just a question of saying Amy Barrett's a woman, so therefore she's going to be more against Roe versus Wade. If Roe versus Wade gets overturned, it's going to be the court that will do it, and it'll be the 5 members. And we're a long ways from that happening. I think to a certain extent we shouldn't let this be a battle about abortion.
And I think that's the left is trying to make it that battle. But even Judge Napolitano earlier said, this has been in place for 40 years. Right. There's no interest in changing something that's been in place for 40 years.
I think what you'll do, and equally as important, and even with Roe versus Wade, the states still have rights to make some limitations or alterations to their individual laws. But I go back to the point. This is going to be a court that you're not going to have a Souter on there. You're not going to have someone that you're going to have to worry about every single day. And Souter was the perfect example. We basically ran away from a fight. We didn't know who Souter was. John Sununu, who was the chief of staff, recommended represented him, as did the senator from who's now passed on from Redmond. No one knew his record. No one knew who he was. He was pro-life, and so because he was a Catholic, but they assumed he was going to be a conservative. He never cast a conservative vote in his entire pen.
Now, if the Democrats successfully do frame this as a war on reproductive rights or on a war as women, do you think that's going to have an impact on the midterms and millennial and young people voter turnout? Because historically, we've seen that young people, even though they say these issues are so important to them, they don't necessarily go to the polls. But if they do that, do you think that you're going to get some momentum there?
As you know better than anybody, the voter intensity is what we have to worry about. And where's it coming from? Is it going to be our supporters that are going to get intense over immigration or other issues? I think we need a fight. I think at the end of the day here, we've got to do something to energize our base. The Democratic base, I assume, is going to be energized somewhat. It's not a national election, but needless to say, you still got thousands of people marching in the streets over various issues. So I think to a certain extent, it's time for a fight. It's time to win a fight and argue the principle. What are the principles of conservatism on the legal system? And I think the critical thing is someone like Scalia, who was a great leader in this battle, is no longer with us, but the spirit of Scalia is still there.
Well, he's got this decision, and then he's going to Europe, obviously for NATO, the NATO meetings, and then he'll meet with Putin on the 16th. And in the middle of all of this is all the trade issues, Ed. So what's your take on tariffs now in place? Some of the hardest hit areas of the country are the ones that voted for President Trump. That's obviously by design. If this trade war drags on, does it affect the GOP midterms, and how important is this international trip now that he's taking for NATO?
My sense is the trade war, and it is a war. I mean, I don't care what anybody says. Once you throw rocks at the Chinese and they pick up the sword to come back at us, it's not going to be over in a week. It's going to be a long, hard battle, and they control every element of the business, and corporate and government are all part of one element in the China. We have people who are going to be very unhappy about the trade war, particularly some of our base, the farm community and the suburban rural community, which is very important to us. A congressional midterm is about individual races. It's not a national election. And I think to a certain extent it could hurt us unless those members of Congress and representing those districts go out and make the arguments that hopefully are correct arguments. What I worry about is I don't think we're going to have a good NATO. I mean, I think he's slammed NATO pretty good, and they're not going to welcome him. The Putin trip is the big important trip, and that's a chemistry thing. That's how do you relate to each other, and that's the long term, which Trump is masterful at.
And we'll be watching that because we want to better understand what he wants from Russia at this point.
And what Russia wants from us.
And what Russia wants from us. Exactly right. Ed, it's great to see you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Ed Rollins with the latest there.